It's a morning at NTV on the second day of August. Now we get to have conversations, and these conversations need you to take note because they will affect us in one way or another. Our neighbors Kenya are going to be going into the elections anytime now in a few days, and there's always been a case of sort of political instability that can be spread over to us as Uganda. Now this is especially in terms of trade. It could be produce trade or cargo trade for that matter. So Kenya has been used as a route by many Ugandans for goods, both imports and exports, and Mombasa port has also been key, especially towards driving Uganda's economy to life, especially post-pandemic, which is COVID-19, and the Busia border has been looked at to bring in revenue equally. However, the elusive peace in Kenya's coming up elections has left many Ugandans, especially businessmen and businesswomen, worried to what next in case of eventualities in the nation regarding political instability. Now here to give us some sort of hope and courage and maybe alternative solutions to that in case it happens is Alex Rubanda, tariffs manager with URA. Good morning to you, Alex.
Good morning to you.
Thank you so much for making the time to come and, assure Ugandans that not all hope will be lost.
Yeah,
so I want to find out from you, what has been the previous political climate for Kenya, and how has URA actually been able to shock absorb it?
Yeah, thank you so much, and good morning, viewers. The history, especially in terms of the climate of trade and the political climate in particular between Uganda and Kenya, has generally been calm over the years. I think there was only one incident, I think it's in 2007, where there was a lot of post-election violence. And of course, I know it caused a lot of ripples throughout the region. But since that time, we've never had any major challenge.
Well, in 2016, we had an issue, especially in fuel supply to Uganda, because of the pressure around the days during the election and post-election. There was limited, fuel moving into Uganda, which caused a bit of a hiccup in fuel supply here.
Yeah, of course, what normally happens is that when events like these elections come, there's always going to be anxiety, and transporters in particular tend to, be a bit, careful in terms of their movement. So you find out that fear always grips people. But if you realize that even in 2016, it was short-lived, and I think because of the good working relationship between the two sister countries of Uganda and the Republic of Kenya, most of these issues were sorted out. Knowing very well that Uganda it uses the port of Mombasa, and of course, in particular, fuel coming through Eldoret. By the way, I need to let also our viewers know that the movement, especially of fuel from Mombasa to Kampala, normally is by pipeline. So those are not normally affected so much by this. So most of these trucks lift this from Kisumu. So those are normally manageable situations. And I think because of that, it was really addressed by the two governments. And I think we eventually were on top of the game thereafter.
Okay, all right. Right now, we do have the economic crisis. There's the issue of demand and supply. There seems to be little supply for the available demand. One of the issues, of course, is the delay in transit when it comes to goods. I was having a conversation with a trader downtown and said it used to take them 1 to 2 weeks to receive their things. Now it takes them 3 to 4 weeks to get their things. Now, should businessmen and women be worried with what could possibly happen when Kenya goes into elections?
Well, I think we should also take note. Thank you for that question. I think we should take note that we are still reeling from the effects of post-COVID. And as you realize that when COVID set in, the global trade was affected. And because of that, especially logistics were greatly affected. Now, when the economy opened up, and as you realize, I think around last year is when we opened up, even partly this year when we opened up fully, Now, because of that, there was a lot of global demand in terms of logistics arrangements, and that affected greatly the logistics, especially containers and goods and so on. So because of that, there's been some bit of delay, but as you realize that as the economy continues to stabilize, the global economy stabilizes, then you find that most of these issues are being resolved. Mostly. And of course, I know right now the impact of the Ukraine-Russia war has also been affecting a lot of things in terms of the global economic climate. But nevertheless, we are doing our best as URA. We've actually improved a lot in terms of efficiencies, both right from Mombasa up to Kampala. The number of systems that we've introduced that are normally aimed at really fast-tracking clearances. Could you tell us some of the systems that you have introduced and how they are actually aiding? Yeah, as the ESC, we have a number of initiatives, and as URA in particular, one, we need to note that we have a single customs territory framework. Now, the single customs territory framework allows for goods to be cleared, declarations made in the destination country. And when these declarations are made, then you don't need to have multiple declarations along the border like it used to be in those days, where you'd clear goods in Mombasa, they would come in transit through Kenyan transit regimes, and then when you get at the border, you can make another declaration, different bonds. But now, through the single customs territory, we've got a seamless flow. But also we've got facilities like the one-stop border point. The one-stop border point is a concept of integrated border management that removes duplications and makes sure that you facilitate trade, you harmonize procedures, and you simplify them, and that helps the movement of goods. But also technology. We've introduced non-intrusive inspection at the border, where you don't need to open every container. I can assure you that that has also gone a long way. How does that work? Now, what happens is that the scanners have become a headache. Yes, I can imagine. So we use scanners. Now, what happens is that these containers just go through the scanner. Then the scanner takes images. Once it takes images, then you use risk management. And there are ways in which our teams analyze that information. And the whole essence of that is really to save time, because our interest is to make sure that the trader, the taxpayer, reduces costs as much as possible. And that is the thrust we have as URA. Okay. Now, still, as URA, you've been talking about borders and the wonderful initiatives that you've put at the border one-stop centers and so on. But the big question is that with the pending Kenyan election, is there a possibility of maybe closing the cross-border trade for that season? Let me take this opportunity to assure Ugandans that the borders will remain open. The borders will not be closed. We are going to keep the borders open, and we are actually working very closely with the government of the Republic of Kenya, and they've given us assurances as they've done before. By the way, we also have a team. We have a team, a URA team, customs officers based in Kenya. Right from Mombasa, we have a team in Mombasa, we have a team in Nairobi, we have a team in Eldoret and Kisumu. So we want to assure Ugandans that the borders are going to remain open. Trade is going to flow smoothly, seamlessly, and there's going to be no disruption in terms of the flow of goods along the borders. We are working closely with our partners, and I think that is something that I need to assure Ugandans at this moment. Okay, one of the things that we are doing cross-border trade in is produce, agro-produce, and you get to have recently Kenya being once again interested in our maize, among other things, and so different trade unions that actively are in that line of agriculture have actually been eager to have the transactions back and forth. However, of course, the elections have to come, and we have to survive and thrive through them. So I want to find out from you, in your capacity, are there alternative maybe routes that are being considered by URA right now in case of any eventualities? Yeah, there are alternative routes. And that's both for exports and imports. Yes, that's true. Yeah, we are aware. Kenya, actually, the port of Mombasa serves 82% of our imports as Uganda. And this is because of the traditional setup we had. And it actually, we are almost a quarter of all goods cleared in Mombasa are destined to Uganda. But Mombasa doesn't only serve Uganda, by the way, for the attention of our viewers. The Mombasa port serves, it's part of the Northern Corridor. Now the Northern Corridor serves Uganda, it serves South Sudan, it serves DRC, it serves Rwanda, and even Burundi. By the way, even goods going to the northern part of the United Republic of Tanzania, also some of them pass through Mombasa. Now, the alternative route we have now is Dar es Salaam. And I think over the years, it has been government policy to try and diversify our trade routes. Of course, being land-linked has a challenge. Now, the other alternative route that we're trying to promote, working closely also with Tanzania Ports Authority, they have an office in Kampala, by the way. And so we're trying to popularize that route as well, taking about 12% of our imports. We've also got officers we've deployed in the port of Dar es Salaam. So it's another alternative route that we're encouraging our traders to also explore. But not to say that we are not going to use that. I can assure the viewers that the Mombasa route will also remain open, but they can also explore the other route. Of course, well, we for purposes of guaranteeing safety of cargo, it's good to always not put your eggs in one basket, as the saying goes, as you know. Yeah, so that's the assurance we want to give our viewers and traders, that the alternative will be the port of the port of. By the way, also in addition to Dar es Salaam, fuel, when we pick fuel by pipeline in Eldoret, we have barges that move from Kisumu up to Port Bell, where you not need trucks, because the fuel will come through pipeline from Mombasa right up to Kisumu. And then from Kisumu, they pump them into the barges, and then they come straight. So fuel is something that is really well secured as well as an alternative, in addition to the trucks that will come both through Mombasa and through Dar es Salaam as an alternative route.
All right. Now that you're here and you're the tariffs manager, I'd like to put you in the hot spot. Wow. We have, of course, the economic crisis. Banks have come out to be lenient to businesses, to be able to, sort of support the whole ecosystem as far as trade commerce is concerned. Now, when it comes to URA, are there any incentives that maybe are being discussed right now in regards to tariffs to business people that can actually aid them in continuing to do business in, at least a seasoned time, or for a particular period of time? Thereafter, you can go back to the heavy taxation?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We need to take note, first of all, that Uganda we are part of the East African community, and within the EAC framework, we have quite a number of incentives that are available, especially to manufacturers, to importers, to even export. And we are looking at international trade taxes, because you see, we've got international trade taxes in terms of import duty, but also we have domestic taxes like value added tax, VAT, and excise duty, and withholding tax. Now, the incentives we have under the EAC trade regime is that we have duty remissions, for example, for manufacturers. Now, what duty remission means, it means that, we as an EAC, as a trade bloc, as a customs union, we operate what we call a common external tariff. A tariff is a rate of duty on imports coming in, and it's levied as a percentage or as a specific value amount in terms of the value of the goods. For instance, if you buy goods worth maybe $20,000, then a percentage of it, it can be 0, 10, 25%. Now we've got a fourth band, which is 35% of that value becomes the import duty. And then, of course, we have other domestic tax. So we've got an a duty remission scheme that remits that import duty would have paid for manufacturers, especially when importing raw materials. But we also have other schemes, like there's an exemption regime that provides exemptions. They are specific, but they're also general exemptions for those who are bringing goods. For instance, if you look at those who are involved in the hotel industry, in the medical industry, some security equipment, in the aircraft industry, those who are engaged in farming, in agriculture, in agro processing, there are quite a number of incentives that are embedded in the fifth schedule. It's called the fifth schedule of the East African Community Customs Management Act. Then we've got also other incentives that we have got domestically for those who are, developing in the industrial parks. You must have heard about the industrial parks. We've got, exemptions on VAT under the VAT Act. Then we've got, there are people who are entitled to withholding tax exemptions in terms of the compliance. But also we have other facilities under the customs framework in terms of authorized economic operator facility. Now this facility rewards compliant traders, compliant importers, so that you're not subjected to the full, full distance, full procedures that are there. You are given some kind of preferential arrangement because of your compliance. So that helps a lot in terms of giving incentives to our taxpayers. So even if you look at the structure of the East African Community Common External Tariff, I told you there are 4 bands. There's 0% now, that is normally for machinery. And then, because machinery, importing them is very expensive in terms of value. So there's no import duty on most machinery. And then for intermediate products, they are 10%. And that also helps. So we also have a facility of VAT deferment. Ordinarily when you import goods, you pay VAT. So machinery, we defer VAT for those who are engaged in industry. So those are some of the incentives that I can talk about that helps to boost tax. But also the commissioner has a privilege in terms of those who are struggling with payment of taxes. If they're compliant, they can also ask for payment of taxes by installment. And even provisional release is granted, especially where the security, in case maybe some delay. Those are the kind of incentives we have.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Alex. Now let's talk about tariffs domestically. There seems to be some double taxation, especially for the retailers towards the end user or the end consumer. One of them is through supermarkets. Now the goods that come into the supermarkets are already taxed. Then they get to the shelf at the supermarket, and supermarkets are also paying tariffs for those goods being on their shelves. Isn't that double taxation?
No, it's well, of course, the concept of double taxation is at times people have mixed it up. But what we are calling double taxation, I think, is where there are other domestic taxes being paid. For instance, when an importer is doing business, or rather a seller or a trader is doing business, he's required to levy VAT on goods that VAT are payable in terms of the output VAT. But also they're expected to pay income tax, because when you trade, you make profits. And when you make profits, you're supposed to tax them. Now, the taxes you pay at importation are, like I told you, import duty for those who are importing, and those ones you pay for them. Now, of course, a trader has to factor taxes in terms of his final price, and that's how he makes a profit. So we don't really have such. And by the way, VAT paid at importation is claimable. You can claim a refund when you pay your VAT. So that's our tax policy, is to make sure that there's equity, there's fairness, and those principles are enshrined in our values. What we call our client value proposition is always guarded to make sure that we don't overtax, double tax people. Okay. Whatever taxes are there are enshrined in law. All right. Either under the Income Tax Act, the VAT Act, the Excise Duty Act, or the East African Community.
We're thankful to the government that no new tariffs were introduced in this financial year 2022-2023. So what's the commitment of URA in aiding what is known as the economic crisis and helping Uganda sort of survive it?
Well, as you know, I need to also make this clear. URA, we implement tax policies. The prerogative of coming up with tax policies and maybe relief or packages for that is normally with the government, depending, of course, on what kind of. But what I'm aware is that government has put quite a number of remedial actions and activities to support businesses that have not done well and where they're going through some difficulties. But of course, as URA, like I said earlier, we do understand the challenges that farms are going through, and that's why I told you that we have facilities like paying taxes by installment, for instance. But like I said, all the tax, what we do, we basically implement the tax provisions, and whatever relief that are granted must also be provided for by the law. And I know government has provided quite a number of incentives to people under certain considerations, but all of them are legally provided for. That's really what I can say about it. But of course, we are also considerate. We have facilities like the warehousing regime. Now, the warehousing regime allows traders who have imported goods to keep their goods within customs control for up to 6 months if they don't have money. Then when they have money...
And then they're not paying for this.
No, they don't pay taxes.
Okay.
They may only pay some dues to the owner of the bonded warehouse for storage and keeping
which is
the goods.
an agreement.
Which is an
two.
agreement between them. It's a private, yeah. So, and they're allowed to remove them as and when they have the ability. So those are kind of the provisions that are there.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Alex Rubanda, who is the tariff manager at URA. He's giving you confidence that whatever happens in Kenya, we are going to be having continuous cross-border trade, and that is in regarding export and also import, and that's the confidence that we have that URA is doing everything to ensure that the borders and trade continues to happen throughout the Kenyan elective season. Away from that, we're going to go to Rashul Didi, and we just want to find out from him what's the update in regards to how people have actually been responding to the economic crisis, especially when it comes to fuel. Now, last month we did have some cases in Jinja of people going on strikes, especially public transport, taxis, borders going on strike in Jinja town because of the high exorbitant prices that were on that particular area code as far as prices are concerned. Right now, fuel, when you look at petrol, it's between 6.1 and 6.3. When you look at diesel, it's also relatively around the same thing. Depends on which fuel station, by the way, you're going to. So a total of 165 people were arrested, 105 prosecuted following the protests on the 25th of July, and that was over the skyrocketing prices of fuel as well as commodities. And so on that note, we get to have an update when it comes to Kira Regional Police PRO, and that is the Assistant Superintendent of Police, James Mubi, having a conversation with Rashul Adidi.